Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Protecting Yourself and Your Team, Coverage Essentials for Businesses. I'm Mike Gifford from the Branding and Stakeholder Engagement Unit at the Workers' Compensation Board, and joining me today is our Advocate for Business, Anthony Tomaselli. Today, Anthony will discuss basics of the workers' compensation system, including insurance types, coverage requirements, and employers' obligations under the law. We will also cover who needs coverage and who does not need coverage, how and when to report an injury or illness, including COVID-19, considerations when hiring independent contractors, laborers, and domestic workers, lowering premiums and penalties, and where to go for assistance with them. We'll be using the chat feature to receive your questions today. Please enter your questions throughout the presentation in the chat box located on the right side of your screen. Anthony will answer as many of your questions as he can, but if there are any he doesn't get to, or if you think of something after this session ends, we'll be providing you with additional resources at the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started.
Thanks, Mike. As you said, this is Anthony Tomaselli. I'm the Advocate for Business at the Workers' Compensation Board. Hopefully you can hear me okay. If you have any problems, send something in the chat. I'll try to speak up, slow down, speed up. I'll take whatever feedback you have for me and do the best I can. So let me start by just giving you a brief introduction to the Workers' Compensation Board. A lot of people don't realize what it is. So we were created as part of a number of labor reforms after the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in 1911. At that time, we really started looking a little more carefully on how workers are treated and how we handle a lot of the common issues that are faced in the workplace, such as accidents and injuries. So the Workers' Compensation Board oversees a system wherein, and we kind of refer to it as a grand bargain between employers and employees, where employees essentially give up their right to sue their employers if there's an accident or an injury, but the employers are now required to have workers' compensation insurance in place to cover their employees. The way the system is supposed to work, employers have insurance. The insurance companies will provide the payments with the medical benefits and the indemnity, the wage assistance. I'll get into that in a minute, but they provide assistance if there's an accident or an injury and a claim. We only really need to get involved in this system between the employers and the insurance companies and employees when there's an issue. We adjudicate any disputes within the system, questions, concerns with the decisions that are made. We get reports from all the parts of the system, the insurance carriers, the medical providers, and the employers, and just make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do in compliance with the law. And so that's where we are. I have a very specific role within the Workers' Compensation Board. I am the Advocate for Business. My job is to assist businesses with any coverage or compliance issues. We kind of do this in two ways. We try to get out and educate folks. We do webinars like this, but we also go out and we do in-person events. We'll meet with you and any of your associates, talk about workers' compensation issues, and try to help you understand what the expectations are of you as an employer, what you need to know to navigate this system. And then we also want to take feedback from you. You tell us, we're trying to educate you, but you tell us what your common issues are, what your concerns are. I'm fortunate enough to report directly to the chair of the Workers' Compensation Board. So when you bring your issues or concerns to my office, the advocate's office, you're not going to be buried way down deep in the bureaucracy. Your issues are going to get heard, and we're going to do what we can to help you. So let's start with the big one, workers' compensation insurance. It's in the name of the organization. So you got to have workers' compensation insurance to protect your workers if there are on-the-job accidents, injuries, or illnesses. So if there is an on-the-job accident, injury, or illness, the workers' compensation insurance would provide, pay for all the medical bills and provide wage replacement to help that injured worker take care of their family, keep food on the table, keep a roof over their head. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is to protect both the employers and the employees, because if the insurance is covering the costs of the accident or the injury and helping the employee take care of themselves, then they don't need to sue their employer. The other type of coverage that we've kind of sort of assumed responsibility for is disability benefits. New York State requires disability benefits insurance for most workers in the state. This would cover off-the-job accidents, injuries, and illnesses. This only provides a limited wage replacement. There's no medical benefits tied to these disability benefits. Ideally, if a person got hurt or injured off the job, they would have some other type of insurance that would cover that. But this is just to help New Yorkers with keeping food on the table, keeping a roof over the head while they recover from whatever happened. Currently, you can receive up to $170 a week for up to 26 weeks under New York State's Disability Benefits Program. So who needs coverage for these two types of insurance? Businesses with employees, they need coverage. Workers' compensation coverage has to be in place on day one. As soon as you hire a worker, they need to be covered, which means you as an employer need to be talking to insurance professionals about getting a policy before you hire your first worker, right? So get that in place before you even bring on your first worker. Disability insurance and the paid family leave, which I haven't mentioned yet. I'm going to do a whole section on paid family leave at the end of the webinar. But your disability and your paid family leave, you need that 4 weeks after the 30th day of employment. So workers' comp, day one, disability and paid family leave, 4 weeks after the 30th day of employment. So we just said that employees need to have coverage. What is an employee, right? Important question. So anyone that provides any services to a for-profit business can be determined to be an employee. Now note, there's nothing in this definition that says anything about pay or financial compensation. So even volunteers, people who volunteer to help your for-profit business, they need to be covered by workers' compensation insurance. If they get hurt or there's an accident while they're helping your for-profit business out, you're going to be responsible for that accident or injury. With the nonprofits, it's a little bit different. If you're not-for-profit, you're looking really, the compensation does become a more important factor. People can volunteer for not-for-profits and not be covered. So really, any compensated individual providing services to a not-for-profit can be determined to be an employee. There's a few exceptions, such as clergy and teachers, but generally we're looking at pay when it comes to not-for-profits. So who's not required to have workers' compensation insurance? So sole proprietors with no employees, partners and partnerships with no employees, one or two person-owned corporations with no employees. LLCs is the only people compensated, are members of the LLC. Now note, there's a common theme here. If you're the owner of the business, it's your business, you get an accident or an injury happens to you, you want to take responsibility for that. You want to assume that risk and say, all right, if something happens to me, I'm going to figure out how to keep a roof over my head. I'm going to figure out how to take care of my family. You can choose to do that. But once you add an employee, a person helping you, helping your business, you need to get coverage and you need to cover them. And also note with the corporations, once you go beyond two, you know, I can't even tell you why it goes to three. It's just the way the law was written, but once you add a third owner to a corporation, you also need to have coverage. So how much is this going to cost, right? We just said you need to have coverage, you got to have a few workers. How much is it going to cost? How is this figured out? Well, when you go out there and you start pricing out insurance with different carriers, there's not going to be too much variation from one carrier to the next because they all have to follow these classification codes. All right, there's an organization called the Compensation and Insurance Rating Board that's actually separate from us. But they're the ones who look and do research on all the different types of jobs that people do and the types of accidents that happen and the cost of the accident, and they rate all these different jobs by how hazardous they are and how dangerous they are, and they come up with these classification codes. So you're going to tell your insurance carrier what kind of work your employees do. They're going to assign a classification code, and that's going to be the base for what your insurance premium is figured out. It's going to be a percentage of your payroll, which is obviously going to get bigger if you have more employees. One of the best things you do to keep these rates down is operate safely, because just like with your car insurance and your homeowner's insurance, if you have a lot of claims, accidents, a really bad track record, your rates are going to go up. If you're safe and they don't have to pay a lot of claims for you, your rates are probably going to stay down. Every year you go through an audit with your insurance carrier. They're going to look at how many employees you said you had at the beginning of the year, how many you have now at the end of the year, any issues that came up during the year, and then they'll factor that into your premium for the upcoming year. And then, of course, they add in their own administrative expenses, and that's where you start to see there will be some variation from one carrier to the next. far as how much it costs. I'm happy to say in 2024, the board lowered our assessment rate on the workers' compensation premiums. This is the piece that we take out that all the insurance companies give to us. We've lowered that by, what we got there, 0.6%. So we've kind of estimated that we're allowing New York business owners to save $53 million on their premiums. I bring this up now so that if you could say, if your insurance rates go up this year for workers' compensation, it's not us. Get mad at your insurance carriers. Don't get mad at the board. We're lowering what we're taking out of the cost there. So specific coverage issues. These are the things that people call and want to ask us about all the time. I'll try to address some of them. Sole proprietors, partnerships, corporate officers, what do we do about them? Independent contractors, that's a big topic for conversation. Family members, do I need to cover my family members? Yes, you do need to cover your family members. And domestic workers. So let's jump on into that. We got a little scenario here. Let's see what you know already, before I start giving away all the secrets. Let's see if you guys can figure this out. We'll do this little quiz here. I'm going to tell you about Jen's tutoring services. Jen wants to start an SAT tutoring business. She's going to hire independent contractors for all those tutoring services. Parents are going to contact Jen to match their child with a tutor. Parents are going to pay her, and she's going to pay the tutors. Is Jen required to provide workers' compensation insurance for her independent contractors? I'm going to give you a little time to think about that, and then I'll tell you what you need to know. So the answer is yes. Jen is going to require workers' compensation insurance. I hope I didn't give you too little wait time, but just to move things along, she is going to require workers' compensation insurance. That's because when we're talking about independent contractors, right, she wanted to call these workers independent contractors. A lot of people want to call their workers independent contractors. They set up these 1099s for tax purposes, right? That has nothing to do with workers' compensation insurance. When we're talking about workers' compensation insurance, we're going to actually look at how the work is being done. We have a list of about 10 questions that a law judge would ask if trying to determine if a contractor was independent or not. That's on our website if you want to read all 10 questions. But basically those questions are really trying to get to, does this business really exist as its own entity? And also, who is directing and controlling the work? Who is deciding when to do the work, how to do the work, where to do the work? If they're making all those decisions, then that contractor is not necessarily independent. In the case of Jen that we just talked about, Jen is scheduling the tutoring sessions. She's telling the tutors where to go. She's telling them what to do when they get there. They're not really working independent. They are working under Jen's control. So even if she's paying them with 1099s, she needs to have workers' compensation coverage for them because she's responsible for their health and safety. Construction gets a little bit interesting. There's lots of subcontractors. There's people coming on and off of job sites all the time. So we have something called the Construction Industry Fair Play Act, whereas any worker that is on a construction job site is going to be presumed to be an employee of one of the companies on that job site unless it can be proved that that worker has their own business. To be frank, this is to avoid that issue of somebody picking up a laborer for a day and having that person get injured on the job and everybody saying, oh, he's not mine, he's an independent contractor, he's a sole proprietor, she doesn't belong to us. No, that person's got to belong to somebody if it can't be proved that they own their own company. Furthermore, when we're talking about general contractors and subcontractors on a job site, general contractors are liable for all the workers' compensation claims of any uninsured subcontractors. So if you're looking to be a general contractor and work in construction, you want to make sure that the subcontractors that you hire have workers' compensation insurance. Otherwise, if one of their workers gets hurt or sick on the job, your policy is going to be responsible for that. One of the things that we recommend is that if you are working with subcontractors and you're a GC, you should have your subcontractors add you as a certificate holder to their workers' compensation insurance policy. This would allow you to be able to produce that certificate when you need to show proof of coverage for your workers. You can also give that to your insurance company because your carrier, they know that you're working as a general contractor. They're going to assume, unless you can demonstrate to them that your subcontractors have coverage by showing them the certificate, your carrier is just going to go on the safe side, and they're going to charge you. They're going to include it in your premium that you are going to be responsible for any claims against any of your subcontractors. So get them to add you as a certificate holder so that you have that proof of coverage to share with your carrier. Now, if you don't get the correct insurance, the penalties are big, right? $2,000 for every 10 days out of compliance, which can add up to about $72,000 a year. If you have up to 5 employees, we're looking at a misdemeanor, which is subject to a maximum of $5,000 on top of that $2,000 for every 10 days. If you have more than 5 employees, now we're looking at a felony, and they can hit you with up to $50,000 on top of that $2,000 for every 10 days. And you could even go to jail. So these penalties will add up. And also, I mentioned those classification codes. If you misclassify your workers, if you tell your insurance carrier that your workers are doing safer work than they're really doing to try to get a lower workers' compensation rate, and you get caught, your penalty is going to be the same as if you had no insurance at all. There's something in New York called the debarment list. Anybody that gets a workers' compensation or a disability penalty is going to be placed on this debarment list. Okay, if you fall into that misdemeanor threshold of 5 or fewer employees, you're going to be on there for a year. 5 or more, you could be on this list for up to 5 years. And this means that you're not bidding on any public work contracts or subcontracts, you're not getting any grants, you're not getting any permits. Okay? You can find this list on our website, the Workers' Compensation Board website. You can find a link to the department list and look up any business if you want to find out if they're on there. You know, sometimes people do use the debarment list as a vendor responsibility check, right? You know, not necessarily talking about a government contract, but you want to find out, is this person that I'm working with reputable? This is a place that they can go and look a business up and see, oh, are they debarred? So essentially what you need to know is you don't want to be on the debarment list. You want to stay away from this as possible. And, you know, get the workers' compensation coverage, get the disability coverage. Don't get a penalty and don't get on the debarment list. Now, if you do get one of these penalties, don't just stick your head in the sand. Contact us. Let us help you. Okay? We can reduce the penalty significantly because what we're trying to do, what the board wants to see is compliance. We want to make sure that every worker is protected and covered. Okay? We're not out here trying to slam business owners and penalize them. We want to see people protect their workers and workers get care when an accident or injury happens. So if you do get a penalty, a noncompliance penalty, and you contact us and you can show us that you went out and you got the insurance you were supposed to have according to the law, we will settle your penalty to something far lower, probably something fairly close to what you would have paid if you had gotten the right insurance in the first place, as long as you don't have any uninsured claims in the meantime. But so please, don't hesitate, don't wait, because as you saw, those penalties keep adding up and adding up and adding up, and then you'll start getting interest on top of those penalties. If you ignore these penalties, they're just going to build and build and build. And I also want to let you know you cannot get away from your workers' compensation penalties. There is no bankruptcy to get away from your workers' compensation penalties. These debts will follow you forever if you don't get them taken care of. So please contact us, let us work with you. As I said, we can reduce the penalties and settle. We can also offer payment plans. If you get a penalty, let us help you get out from the mess if you fall into that trap. So what can you do in the meantime to keep your costs down, right? That's a good question. Make sure, again, I mentioned if you misclassify your workers and say they're doing more dangerous work than they're actually doing, you could be penalized. But if you misclassify your workers the other way, you could be paying more money. You know, like if somehow your insurance carrier thinks that your workers are roofers and not office assistants, they're going to charge you more money. So make sure that your insurance carrier has the correct classification code applied for your workers. Another very important thing is be responsive and follow your claims. The insurance carriers do not like it if you don't help them out when there's a claim issue. So they're going to factor that into your premium. So if you do have an issue, because, you know, let's face it, accidents happen, be responsive, be receptive, keep good records, be a good communicator, and stay on top of things. And then finally, most importantly, operate safely, right? The best accident is an accident that never happens at all. And as I mentioned earlier, if you can avoid having accidents and claims on your policy, your rates are going to stay down. So what can you do to help with this safety issue, right? We recommend a labor management safety committee. So you could do this really formally or informally. Really the idea here is to get the managers or the people responsible for the job site together with the workers, looking around and making sure that, hey, this is actually a safe place. And if there are any obvious hazards or dangers, that we're taking steps together to mitigate them, right? You can get a walk around the workplace, check out the equipment, look at the site's procedures, you know, show commitment. Have your managers, have the ownership show a commitment to the workers that you're interested, that you want to know this stuff. Get them talking. You know, the workers know. They know the danger spots. They know the hazards. They know that piece of equipment that doesn't work right. In many cases, they're just not comfortable sharing that information. Make them comfortable telling you about their concerns. And be proactive. Don't let people get hurt on the job. Another thing you could do that can help you save a few bucks is this workplace safety incentive program. It's called Code Rule 60. It's run by the Department of Labor, New York State Department of Labor, and this is a program where if you set up one of these three types of plans, you got a safety plan, return to work plan, a drug and alcohol prevention plan. If you set up one of them, two of them, all three of them, you can get discounts. If you do all three, you can get up to 10% in the first year, 6% in the second and third years. This is a really good program. If you set these plans up, there's a list of certified consultants on the Department of Labor's website there. The website's there at the bottom of the screen. But I can also tell you that many of the insurance carriers actually have people on staff that are certified to approve these types of plans. So ask your insurance carrier, say, hey, do you guys know about Code Rule 60? I'm interested in saving money on my workers' compensation policy, and see if they can help you with this. But you set the plan up, you get it certified by one of these consultants, these certified specialists, and they have to. The carriers by law have to give you these discounts. So it's a pretty good program. It's definitely something worth looking into if you're trying to save some money. Another thing that the New York State Department of Labor does that can be very helpful is they have this on-site consultation program. This is, they don't issue any fines or penalties, so you don't have to be afraid to call these people. You're not setting yourself up for big penalties or anything like that. You contact the Department of Labor, you tell them you'd like an on-site consultation. They'll come and walk around your workplace. They'll do air and noise sampling, you know, do all kinds of tests and help you figure out, you know, what kind of hazards exist at your workplace, what kind of dangers your workers face, and give you advice. Again, this is free. It's no cost, and they do not issue any fines or penalties. This is just us, New York State, trying to help you run a safer shop and keep your workers safer and healthier. So, quick review, what do you need to do as an employer? Get the right insurance that you need to have, the workers' comp and the disability. You're going to get an insurance poster from your carrier that tells you what coverage you have. You're going to want to display that so all your workers can see, yes, they're covered, and they know who's covering them and where to go if they need to file a claim. If you have a claim or accident, make sure it gets reported quickly. No, you cannot discriminate against a worker for filing a claim. You can terminate workers. All right, this is a misconception. A lot of people think, oh, man, this guy filed a workers' compensation claim. We're stuck. Can't get rid of that person. That's not necessarily true. While you can't discriminate against an employee for filing a workers' compensation claim, you can terminate a worker for a valid business reason. But this is on you as an employer to keep good records that if there is a history of misconduct, insubordination, et cetera, or if you can show that, you know, there's just not enough work, there's economic reasons you would downsize anyway, whether or not the person was hurt or injured, you got to do what you got to do to run your business, okay? Also note that employees are eligible for workers' compensation and disability regardless of their citizenship or immigration status. So now I mentioned we're going to save paid family leave for the end. Let's talk about paid family leave a little bit. Okay, paid family leave has been around a couple of years now. It's one of the most aggressive programs of its kind in New York State, in the country, what New York State's done here. What we do is give job-protected paid time off for parents to bond with a child, for people to care for sick family members, and also support military family members if they're deployed. To get into the more specific, the bonding with a child accounts for birth, adoption, and fostering children. So any of those circumstances apply. Both parents are eligible to take time off in the first 12 months. So it's a great way to spend more time with your family. It's great for employee morale if they get to be there and be present for these kinds of things. So it's pretty good program. When we're talking about caring for family members with a serious health condition, the qualifying family members include all of these types of relatives: spouses, partners, children, stepchildren, grandparents, siblings. They all qualify. You really just need to show that this family member is under the care of a medical professional. These family members can live outside of New York State too. If you've got to leave to go see them, outside the country even, if you've got to leave to go take care of somebody, you can use your paid family leave benefit, even if you're going to visit your grandmother back in France or wherever you're going to take care of them. So what we're talking about with that, as I mentioned, I kind of sort of got into this a little bit ahead of myself, but we're talking about people who are requiring inpatient care or continuing treatment or supervision by a healthcare provider. Now, during the height of the pandemic, we did establish that a COVID-19 diagnosis can be considered a serious health condition that meets certain criteria in order to use this benefit if that's what's going on. Military deployments, anybody who's got any family or friends who've served in the military know that a regular feature of military service is short notice deployments, mandatory military events, mandatory R&R, mandatory counseling, post-deployment activities. If you have a family member who has to do these things in their service to the country, you can use paid family leave to assist them, to help with the child care, help with the family members, because it does, military service can place a tremendous burden on families. This is a way New York State trying to help with that. So now most private employers have to have coverage for their employees, paid family leave. It's required. The requirements really mirror the disability. I mentioned that way back in the beginning. So 4 weeks after the 30th day of employment, paid family leave coverage needs to be in place. You're going to buy your paid family leave coverage from the same carrier. It's usually going to be added as a rider onto your disability insurance coverage. So in most cases, if you're talking to a professional about getting disability insurance, that's when you're going to get your paid family leave set up as well. Sole proprietors and other self-employed individuals, you can get the paid family leave for yourself. I think it's actually important to note that for the workers' compensation and the disability insurance as well, if you're the owner of the business, just because you're exempt, I mentioned all those folks who are exempt from needing coverage, just because you're exempt from coverage doesn't mean that you can't get it if you want it. And that's actually a personal decision. You got to look at your financial situation, look at the health of your business, look at the health of your bank account, and wonder, can I afford an accident or an injury? Can I afford the risk that I'm taking by not having workers' compensation coverage? And if you can't, manage the situation, if you had an accident and suddenly couldn't go to work for a while, then maybe you need to cover yourself. With the paid family leave, it's the same thing. You can get access to these same benefits to support your family members if you voluntarily opt in for coverage. If you opt into the paid family leave coverage for yourself within the first 26 weeks of starting your business, there is no waiting period for when you can use the benefit. If you wait until after 26 weeks of starting your business, then you have to wait 2 years before you can take the time off, the paid time off for the paid family leave. What are the benefits that you get for taking the paid family leave? Well, you can get 67% of your average weekly wage, which is capped at 67% of the New York average weekly wage. Average weekly wage is based on the last 8 weeks of pay prior to taking paid family leave, and the 2024 New York State's average weekly wage is $1,718.15. You can take your paid time off all at once, intermittently. It must always be in full-day increments. So who pays for this? Now, paid family leave is fully paid for by employee payroll contributions, unless you, as the employer, choose to. You want to pay for it. Department of Financial Services sets the employee contribution rate to match the cost of coverage. Current cost information is available on our website at paidfamilyleave.my.gov/cost. I believe that the rates right now are somewhere around like 0.333% or something like that, or 0.0, so it's like less than, and it's capped at like $300-something a year. You can look up the specific numbers on the Paid Family Leave website. This is not really expensive. The Paid Family Leave is not very, very costly. I should mention that also with disability insurance, we're looking at about typical disability insurance rates fall somewhere between like 10 and 20 cents for every $100 is what you're actually going to pay for your disability insurance. And the Paid Family Leave is going to be another, we're talking about cents here, not big money. So it's a small price to pay for, again, the health and safety of your employees and their families, and it's great for morale, great for keeping people around and having good, motivated workers. So eligibility for paid family leave, pretty much workers are eligible for paid family leave. There's a little bit of rules and regulations here that, to be a full-time employee, you got to work 20 or more hours a week. You're eligible after 26 weeks of consecutive employment to get the benefit. Part-time employees need to work less than 20 hours. They've got to work 175 days before they can use the paid family leave benefit. And once again, citizenship or immigration status is not a factor in eligibility for using these benefits. So, can employees waive coverage? It's not an option in most cases. Some part-time and seasonal employees may qualify for a waiver, but only if they work fewer than 20 hours a week and won't work 175 days of the year. If they work 20 or more hours a week but won't be in employment with that employer for 26 weeks, so this is like the seasonal workers that we're talking about, again, they can waive their coverage. Now, if the employee's schedule changes that they suddenly no longer qualify for a waiver, that waiver will automatically be revoked within 8 weeks of the schedule change. So then they start making the paid family leave contributions along with any retroactive amounts due. So, key responsibilities of paid family leave. Again, get the coverage. Pay the premiums of funds collected from employee payroll deductions. Provide information about paid family leave to your employees. Let them know that you're getting a paid family leave poster from your carrier as well. Provide your wage information to your carrier when the employee requests paid family leave so they know what the benefits should be. And then if you have any questions or want to know more information, we have a whole paidfamilyleave.my.gov website that we put on just for paid family leave questions. There's a ton of great information there, more than I could ever possibly explain to you in a webinar. Check it out if you really want to know more. Let's talk a little bit about COVID-19. I know it's not a super popular topic anymore, but I think it's important to let people know that Workers' Compensation Board was responsible for kind of helping manage the state through the COVID pandemic. And we do, even still, if you can show that an employee has tested positive for COVID-19 and it really is the result of the workplace conditions, like the employee is being forced into a situation where the COVID was kind of unavoidable. You can file a workers' compensation claim for COVID-19 and get the benefits while you're recovering. We also experienced the quarantines, right? Everybody remembers that. People were being forced into staying home. If it's your child or your spouse, you're being forced into a quarantine with them because they got sick. We worked together to find a way to work with the paid family leave and the disability benefits to make sure that these folks who were being trapped into these quarantine situations could still, again, survive, put food on the table, take care of their kids, take care of their families. So this is how we managed it. I know, again, this isn't really happening right now. We're not hearing about employees and employers being quarantined anymore, but I think it's important to let people know that this is just, you know, when we're confronted with these kinds of situations, we try to look at what we've got and look at the services and the coverages that people are expected to have and see what we can do to make it work to help keep New York running. So your role as an employer in implementing quarantine leave, if it happens, it's just, you know, same as if your employee had requested just paid family leave in general. Let the carrier know if somebody wants to take, you know, file a claim and take leave. We actually have forms specifically for COVID-19 quarantine leave. They're still on our webpage. If you go to the paidfamilyleave.my.gov page, you can find this information. If you want to know more about it, I know I kind of breezed through it quickly because, again, I know a lot of people don't really want to talk about COVID right now. But if you want to know more, check out our website. We got a whole section on COVID-19 with plenty of details and guidance for employers. So go check it out. Great website. If you really need help, we have a attorney of the day on call every single day for paid family leave. If you call this number, 844-337-6303, you will get a workers' compensation board attorney who is prepared to help you with any paid family leave questions. It's every day at any time. During business hours, you need help, give us a call, attorney of the day, paid family leave. So finally, I'm going to start wrapping up. I'm going to plug the future of the Workers' Compensation Board. We're investing heavily in a new business information system. We're trying to tie everything together between the medical providers, the insurance carriers, and the employers, get real-time access to claim status and number of online self-service features and e-forms. We've heard you. We've been listening to you. We are not the easiest agency in the state to deal with. We're trying to get up to date. We're trying to modernize, and this is how we're doing it. And stay tuned, stay informed, and we're only going to get better. If you're interested and you want to follow the board or one of these social media types, you can follow us on X. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can even see a copy of this video on YouTube and a number of other great videos and webinars that the Workers' Compensation Board puts out. And I also encourage everyone to sign up for our notifications. Go to wcb.my.gov, type Get WCB Notifications into the search field, and that'll take you to where you sign up for these notifications. We put a lot of information out there, great information. There's no harm in being informed. So sign up, get these notifications, and keep in touch. We'll be letting you know when there's new information. Finally, this is my contact information at the Office of the Advocate for Business. You can call us anytime, 518-486-3331. We've got real people answering the phone. This isn't a robot or a call center. It's actual Advocate for Business staff will answer the phone and respond to these emails. Email address is advocatebusiness@wcb.my.gov. We got our own page on the Workers' Compensation Board website, really easy to get to, wcb.my.gov/AFB for Advocate for Business. Please use us as a resource. We want you reaching out to us. We want to help you. We want to talk to you. We want to hear from you. So don't be shy. Reach out. Let us know what's going on. So thank you. I'm going to wrap up. I'll give you a chance to answer questions. I know somebody answered a question about clergy and teachers. All right, I'm going to go back to that. I did see it. I did notice that come through the chat bar. I'm sorry, I didn't stop for you then. The exemption for teachers, we're really talking about teachers at not-for-profits, and generally we're looking at religious education, you know, like Sunday school teachers. There's a whole page on the website. If you go to our employer page, go to WCB website for employers, there's a whole section on not-for-profits. You want to look at that not-for-profit area and look at the exceptions for coverage. And naturally, if you have a very specific case and you want to discuss the specifics of the situation you're asking about, you can just shoot us an email or give that Advocate for Business telephone number a call, and we'll be happy to go through your specific situation with you. All right, is that the New Jersey school teacher with part-time faculty? Is that the same question that the person was asking about before? You really want to be looking at, is this organization that you're teaching for, is it a not-for-profit or a for-profit industry? And again, we want to look at the specifics of the case. So I'd actually encourage you to reach out to us, and we'll discuss that with you directly. We can send out a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that's shown today, but you can also just go to YouTube and watch it. Okay, there is a link to this website, this webinar as well on the Advocate for Business page on the Workers' Compensation website as well, so you don't even have to wait for us to send it to you. It's out there already. If somebody wants to know if we have a member that is currently working full-time but is not consistent with 26 consecutive weeks with the same employer, would they qualify for PFL to bond with their newborn? Okay, so the PFL insurance, you're going to get it through your current employer. I would ask your insurance carrier, I would look at the exact, if they haven't been there for 26 weeks yet, they might have to wait until they get there. But depending on who the previous employer had coverage with, there may be something they can do for you. So I would ask your insurance carrier, let them know the specifics of the situation, see if they qualify. If you're not happy with their answer, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to me in my office and let us know. We'd be happy to get involved. It does sound like a case-specific issue, and I would be happy to get into that with you and see what we can do to help. Finally, we got somebody asking about independent contractors that provide service provider management. Should have proof of a certificate of liability to get added as a holder, or should the employer get workers' compensation from them? Okay, so liability insurance and workers' compensation insurance, they're two different types of insurance, okay? With workers' compensation, you're specifically looking at accidents and injuries related to work. Somebody's doing work for you under your direction and control. Your liability insurance is really to address, again, any other types of costs, accidents, issues that come up beyond the injured worker. So you're really looking at the situation. You may need to have coverage for both, depending on what kind of work the worker is doing. Well, what I can tell you, though, is under state law, if you've got somebody doing work for your for-profit business, even if they're a 1099, if they're working under your direction and control, you need to have workers' compensation insurance, because if they do have an accident or an injury, the liability insurance is not going to cover that accident or injury. They're going to say, where's the workers' compensation insurance? And that would be the same in the same situation even if it's a non-for-profit, okay? The liability does not want to, whoever your insurance carrier is for your liability, they're not going to want to pay an accident or an injury. And this is also important. You wonder about your workers and you say, well, maybe I can, people do things like hire off-the-books workers and say, I'm going to try to get away with not having coverage. What ends up getting these folks caught is when they go into the, if you go to the hospital, you go to the emergency room and you say that this accident or injury was a workplace accident or injury. And this goes for even you as an individual. You might think like, oh, I'll just let my own health insurance pay for it. I don't, even if you tell a doctor or somebody makes a note of it that it's a workers' comp, that it's a workplace injury, a workplace accident or injury, that liability or even that personal health insurance carrier, they're not going to want to cover it. Those insurance carriers are going to say, no. Workplace accident injury, where is the workers' compensation insurance carrier? And they're going to send you over to them. It's very important to understand the insurance companies, nobody wants to pay for anything that their policy doesn't specifically cover. And it's pretty well known that workplace accidents and injuries, that's workers' compensation. So you're going to need to have workers' compensation coverage. I see Lisa's looking to definitely speak further. I'm so happy to hear that. Definitely give us a call, and we'll try to get you squared away as best we can. Any other general questions that anybody wants to ask while we're on here? Are we all happy? Amazing presentation. Wow, what a nice thing to say. Thank you so much, Lisa. Appreciate it. Well, certainly our pleasure. We'll hang around here for a few more minutes if anybody wants to chime in with something else. But otherwise, I hope you found this information valuable. I know we're really just scratching the surface. It's complicated stuff. Running a business is tough, and I definitely want to say from me to you, I appreciate that you take this responsibility on to go out there and be employers and try to make a living this way and create jobs and support New York State's economy. So thank you. Keep it up, and we'll continue to be here as a resource. If you need any help, let us know.